Howdy sports fans here, good. Immersion is the cornerstone of every great horror game. If the player isn't immersed in the terrors that surround them, they won't feel the intended fear and the whole thing can fall flat. To truly engage players, developers used to have to rely solely on atmosphere, sound design, lighting and effective in-game mechanics. Thanks to the scariest VR horror games, there's another layer that quite literally draws them into the experience. Virtual reality is the cheese to the horror macaroni. They go together so perfectly that you have to wonder why every new horror title doesn't come with VR compatibility. To showcase just how well VR and horror do pair, we've compiled this breakdown of the best VR horror games. If it's a fright you're looking for, slip into a virtual reality headset and get lost in worlds filled with terrors sure to haunt your dreams. This list includes VR horror games for PSVR, Oculus, Quest and Vive. 10. The Inpatient. The second of two virtual reality spin-offs from Until Dawn, The Inpatient takes a different route and establishes itself as a psychological horror title. The Inpatient puts players in control of an amnesiac patient trapped in the Blackwood Sanatorium. You'll interact with patients and hospital staff that very much belong in the isolated sanitarium, making a series of dialogue choices to keep the story going. While the butterfly effect isn't as in-depth as it was in Until Dawn, dialogue choices do have consequences. Much like the game it's based on, Supermassive Games' slow-paced VR horror experience takes an interesting turn partway through that ties the two titles together perfectly. Exploring the sanatorium and the Blackwood Mountains is a tense experience that becomes increasingly unnerving as the truth of what's unfolding comes to light. While The Inpatient was not that well received at launch for being a bit too overpriced, it's well worth looking at now if you can get it on the cheap. Number 9, Here They Lie. Desolate streets, claustrophobic alleys and run-down buildings are the settings of this atmospheric VR horror experience. As you navigate the nightmarish world, you'll run into the strange and horrifying inhabitants who force you to make moral decisions that could mean life or death. Disturbing imagery will leave you feeling uneasy the further along you get in this story-driven title. Despite very simple gameplay, effective use of dreary colours and twisted imagery keep you engaged from start to finish. Survive to the end and you'll be treated to a complex story with a dark overarching theme. That or you'll be driven completely mad on your search for answers about the mysterious woman in yellow in one of the most overlooked VR horror games around. Number 8, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. It really was only a matter of time until Five Nights at Freddy's crossed into virtual reality territory. The core concept was built for that kind of immersion. Though Help Wanted features a non-VR mode with an Oculus Rift or HTC Vive headset is how the game really should be played. Instead of just the usual Five Nights at Freddy's format, Help Wanted is also a collection of minigames that best utilise virtual reality. Unfortunately, your terrifying friends from previous entries are still lurking about, waiting to stuff you into a suit of metal coils and rods. Fun! Each minigame will force you to face your fears and try to avoid the likes of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, the Mangle and so many more of Freddy's friends. Progress through each game, collect neat rewards at the prize counter and try to survive in this quirky spin-off of the classic Five Nights at Freddy's series. 7. Paranormal Activity: The Lost Soul. While the Paranormal Activity film series may be divisive, this game is pretty widely accepted as one of the scariest VR horror games out there. Set in the same universe as the film series, The Lost Soul takes place in an innocuous suburban home that hides a potentially dangerous secret. Through your VR headset, you'll be immediately immersed in the mystery of the otherwise plain-looking abode. To amplify that immersion, the typical HUD is removed and no real direction is given. Gameplay is set around exploration and discovery. The more you uncover, the more you'll unravel the haunted past. As you may know from the Paranormal Activity movies, that also means you'll be stirring up restless spirits that are sure to give you a fright. Through your explorations, the home becomes more active until it's akin to a chaotic haunted attraction. Surviving Paranormal Activity means relying on nothing more than your flashlight and ability to hide. A proprietary scare randomizer means you'll never know what's coming from one playthrough to the next, and each scare will have you questioning whether you want to move forward. The Lost Soul is better than the last 26.5 Paranormal Activity movies, so give it a shot. 6. Dreadhalls. No two playthroughs are the same in this procedurally generated VR horror adventure. When it comes to horror, that's the best way to keep players on the edge of their seats. It can be too easy to become familiar with a survival horror game, which diminishes your fear. That's just not the case with the claustrophobic dungeon of Dreadhalls. Equipped with a lantern and a limited supply of oil, you'll navigate the winding halls of Dreadhalls, hoping to not run into the horrors that lurk within. Stealth is the only tool at your disposal and the only means of avoiding the creatures thirsting for your flesh and blood, which isn't great. You need both of those things to live. Enhancing the looming frights are positional audio cues that warn you of incoming monsters and keep your heart racing. Dreadhalls is an early VR horror game that still has plenty of spooks to offer. Number 5, A Chair in a Room, Greenwater. What comes to mind when you think of religious killings, corruption and immorality? Probably a top-rated virtual reality horror experience, right? A Chair in a Room comes with heavy themes which help drive a pretty deep narrative that starts in the Greenwater Institute. As Patient 6079, you're plagued with twisted visions, likely linked to the past you can no longer remember. A Chair in a Room is divided up into 6 relatively short but effective chapters. Players will be sent spiralling into the horrors of Patient 6079's past as they explore a world ripe with detailed environments and rich storytelling. If you're in the mood for an in-your-face horror title, you may not appreciate A Chair in a Room's more subtle approach to the genre. The VR gameplay only serves to further immerse players in the ramshackle towns, derelict motels and swamps of the Deep South. This is probably the least well-known game on this list, but one that's absolutely worth ruining some pants for. 4. The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. When it comes to video games, The Walking Dead didn't have the greatest batting average. Sure, there was Telltale's The Walking Dead, but there's also The Walking Dead Survival Instinct and Overkill's The Walking Dead, which both failed to impress and offered generic zombie action. But then came Saints and Sinners, a virtual reality experience that really could have gone the way of its dull predecessors. But it didn't. Skydance Interactive not only captured the emotional weight of living in Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead, but it also developed a suitable VR title that's entertaining and a good test of what the medium can do. Saints and Sinners made zombies scary again while still capturing the desperation of mankind in such a grueling and hopeless scenario. Whether you're desperately trying to get away once the bells start ringing, or trying to make friends with human survivors, Saints and Sinners is relentless thanks to the tech of virtual reality. Becoming part of the undead world is more immersive than ever in this must-play zombie horror drama, especially because you can stab zombies in the eye with a screwdriver and just kind of drag them around. Very fun. Number 3, Red Matter. Maybe a bit of a stretch here, but if you're ever given the opportunity to explore a secret research base on one of Saturn's moons, kindly maybe decline the offer. As Red Matter shows, there's only trouble waiting in the frosty expanse of space. Driven by a deep and engaging story, Red Matter sends players to an aftermath of a sci-fi Cold War. Things seem calm at first, but the desolate base hides secrets you'll wish you never uncovered. Clues are scattered all over the base, you just need to know where and how to find them. Red Matter is a heavily interactive experience that shows off the capabilities of virtual reality fairly well. The puzzles will require you to stop and think, and the beautifully rendered extraterrestrial environment is sure to leave you awestruck. Every stunning detail will pop right in front of your eyes, thanks to the VR tech and Vertical Robot's dedication to building a rich environment. Red Matter is not so much a scare-a-minute kind of VR game, but one with an atmosphere so unnerving that you want to tear your headset off and look around. 2. Phasmophobia. If you're paying attention to trends on Twitch, then you've likely seen Phasmophobia pop up quite a few times. Quite frankly, there's a very good reason for this. This horrifying VR experience pits players in the shoes of a paranormal investigator who takes on dangerous jobs for very little pay. Jumping from investigation to investigation, players utilise recognisable tools of the trade, including EMF meters and spirit boxes, to communicate with the deceased and banish the worst of them from our world. The problem, not every spirit is willing to go quietly. It's a race against the clock as the team scrambles for evidence to determine what kind of spectre they're dealing with. The more they accomplish and the more accurate their guess is, the more money they'll take home for upgraded gadgets. There are a few Ghost Hunter simulators out there, but Phasmophobia takes the genre to a new level. Especially in virtual reality, the game is downright terrifying. The sound design is top notch, the ghosts are spooky, and the atmosphere is just right. Phasmophobia is exactly what people want to see when watching shows like Ghost Adventures. Minus the death, of course. And number 1, of course it's Resident Evil 7. How badly do you want to be terrified by a video game? Resident Evil 7 is an effective horror title on its own, but when you play it through with a VR headset, you can't help but be immersed in the atmosphere. Using a mix of eerie lighting and ambient sounds, Capcom doesn't have to rely on jump scares to make players uneasy, but they're very effective. Sure, there are a few scattered about, but the real horrors of Resident Evil 7 involve anticipating what's to come. The creaky Louisiana mansion is one of the more haunting environments in a Resident Evil game, and Capcom used every shadow and loose floorboard to its advantage. Playing Resident Evil 7 with the PSVR is just as smooth as without. There may be a small and infrequent dip in resolution, but it's not enough to take you out of the experience. Having every terrible sound coming through the headset in incredible clarity, as well as seeing Jack Baker up close, is enough to solidify Capcom among the horror kings of gaming, and also of VR horror games. Now then, where's the Resident Evil Village VR announcement, Capcom? Come on, get a move on. We're waiting, please. And that was our list for the best VR horror games. If you enjoyed this, be sure to let us know down below with a little like and a little subscribe. Ooh, and thank you for watching.